Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. This episode is brought to you by Audible. If you use the link audibletrial.com/RRBG, you can get a 30-day free trial, and you get a free audiobook from their selection of over 180,000 titles. This podcast is also brought to you by Blue Apron. If you go to rockandrollbeerguy.com, there is a link there that says Blue Apron. Click it, and you'll get $30 off your first order and free shipping. In this episode, I talked to Kilian Duarte. He's the bassist for the band Scale the Summit. We talk about the crisis in Venezuela, the current status of the craft beer industry, and we nerd out about music quite a bit. I had a lot of fun talking to him, and I hope you enjoy. Cheers.
Hey man, can you see me?
Yeah, hold on. There we go.
Hey dude, how you doing?
Chilling, man. How you doing?
I've been well, just busy as all hell, but good. What's new with you?
Not much, dude. Just saw the Deftones last night. It was pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, staying busy too, man. Trying to do the podcast thing and working in the beer and...
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just trying to stay busy as I can. And any free time I have is for video games, so...
Yeah, I feel you. I've been just rehearsing for tour and working, and then I've just been playing. I finally got Assassin's Creed Black Flag to work again, so that's what I've been doing on my free time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been delving into the world of Mass Effect Andromeda, so now that's my life. It's fucking crazy. All right, welcome everyone to the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. I'm here with Kilian Duarte.
Hi guys.
Plays bass in the band Scale the Summit, and used to play with the Felix Martin Trio, right? Or I don't know, are you still doing that?
We're in negotiations, but looks like I could still be playing. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. So you're from Venezuela?
Yep, indeed.
Tell me a little bit of how are your people doing right now? Because I mean, it seems like there's always something going on.
Oh man, it's kind of tragic. I mean, it's a lot of decades worth of neglect, abuse of power, foreign interventionism, and just general corruption that's just all steamrolled into this. And now because Maduro and Chavez were basically like narcos and criminals, like it's just people are starving and stuff. And, you can't blame the poor of Venezuela because they've never had a leg up,
right?
To vote for these guys when it first happened. But at this point, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where I'm hoping it doesn't come down to like having to like, be a full blown revolution. But like, I mean, at this point, who knows? This is unprecedented since, the inception of the country, I think. So right. It's up in the air.
One would think that at this point, things could start to get better since, Chavez is dead, right?
Yeah.
And Maduro's dead. And who is there anybody else in place now that's...
No, Maduro's still alive.
Maduro's alive?
Oh, shit. Yeah, and that's the thing is that he's still president and he's still alive. And the thing is, because they control all the wealth, they basically, corrupted the military and the police forces there because there's no money anywhere. So they're going to control that. So in a way, I mean, as morally bankrupt as it is, you can't almost blame the cops because it's the only job where you're going to get a paycheck. And even though you're screwing over people when it comes down to like the last piece of bread, what happens is that they monopolize it. Yeah, it's pretty sad, man. Like it got to the point where like cops were kidnapping people for ransom money. So it's kind of like, wow. There's no medicine. That's the biggest thing too, is like, it's gotten to the point where it's like Syria levels where like hospitals can't get supplies and like, there's no food. I mean, like, unless like there's such a scarcity of food that like, I mean, you might be okay if you're like live on a rancho and you like can grow your own stuff and have your own chickens and stuff like that. But if you live in the city, especially if you live in the city and you're poor, you're really up shit creek because you neither have the farmland to produce your own food and the price of food is so high that it's, they basically have to do everything black market. So it's literally every piece of like governmental corruption and neglect, Russia, the U.S. too, having hands over the past couple of decades, and just Venezuelans also passing the buck themselves, with personal responsibility and hyperbolic nationalism all coming to a head. So it's like 5 trains leaving a station, all going the same speed towards each other, and they finally hit. And that's kind of what's happening now.
Jesus.
So it's kind of fucked. Yeah, man.
It sounds worse. It sounds way worse than what's Cuba.
I would say that it is worse in the sense that like people are starving and like the hospitals don't have any, if you get sick or you get hurt, you're screwed. Yeah. Like in a way, because like unless you're ungodly rich, which even at this point, it doesn't. The inflation's so bad that even if you were like an upper class 1%er Venezuelan, even if you whatever, the inflation's so bad that your money is literally like basically evaporating before your very eyes. So, and the thing is that even if you were rich enough to get dollars, which is what a lot of people used to do, they used to buy dollars so they would like, reinvest their wealth, elsewhere. Now, whoa, sorry, I almost tripped. Sorry. What happened now is that since they made buying dollars illegal, the only way to do it is through the black market. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's basically a worst case scenario, but Venezuelan people, the only thing I'll say, they're insanely resilient for all their flaws in terms of like how they've chosen to be like so nationalistic for so long and ignore a lot of problems. But I believe if there's any group of people that can smile through, waves of bullshit, I believe it's them.
Yeah.
So, here's to positive thinking and, that just things can't stay this bad for that long. So I think it can only go up from here. Sure. If that's the one way to look at it,
Yeah, and it's funny, man, because you hear people complaining now about Trump and everything, and like, oh my God, our country's in shambles. It's like, guys, really? You're still going to the movies to see Spider-Man, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, like, I don't like the guy. I didn't vote for him, but in terms of like people acting like Western civilization's falling apart, I go like, dude, like, our civilization's doing just fine. And 2, like, if you really want to see what like shit hitting the fan is, like, I mean, literal shit. Like, people are doing this as a chemical warfare mechanism. Poor people against the military because, guns are too expensive. It's not that guns are illegal in Venezuela, just like, unless you happen to have the money to buy a firearm, it's very difficult to acquire them. So what they did is that they started making these, not joking, they're called pupuzelas. They're like, they're literally shit bombs that they throw at the military with human feces as a way to do it. So shit hitting the fan and shit hitting like for real, like not even worth it anymore. So like, yeah, I would say that, I don't take for granted that like I live here, but I always think about Venezuela. I feel some survivor's guilt in the sense that I came here when I was 3. My parents, how can I say it? Like they were going to buy a house and then the economy crashed there. And then they moved here with like, only their savings. And luckily they had my grandma and my grandpa that sponsored them to legally come here. Like, but I always think to myself, all the kids that aren't born into a situation where their parents can get sponsorship to legally come to a country or, just can't even if they get the sponsorship, can't afford the tickets or to move their family. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I never forget. And that's why I'm like really grateful for my situation. But it makes me also, I can't think of, I can't not think about those people and like what they're going through and how I left. But like, it weighs on my heart kind of,
Sure. Well, so is there an import that comes from Venezuela that like I'm just trying to figure out why like the U.S. hasn't jumped in to help. Like, is it because there's nothing for them to like profit from?
Well, as far as I know, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, you would think we'd be all over it.
I mean, we were. I mean, and this is where like the left starts to blame the U.S. for everything, the right starts to blame Russia for everything, and the truth is always for people who actually research history. It's very complicated. But the Kremlin and the CIA for like decades were both kind of sponsoring different regimes over here to kind of take over the oil. In the 90s, it was Calderas, and that was pretty much like a CIA puppet. And then Chavez was a Kremlin puppet that used like populism to go up. But really, it was just different countries using our oil reserves and the Cubans it was the Kremlin using the Cubans to then influence Venezuelans for that. But the reason why now I think it's not a national security threat. Whatever happens in Venezuela, it can't infiltrate. I mean, it's a threat in the sense that like they are pushing drugs, but it's not right now. The State Department's priority is terrorism, and it has been since 9/11.
Yeah.
Two, I mean, even though weird because I'm not a Republican, but a Republican administration would probably be best to like kind of go and do a 1980s, like, let's damn the communist type of thing. We've kind of already intervened in the Western Hemisphere enough to people's liking, and it's not the Cold War anymore. So we can't really do that without justifying military action, and especially in the age of the internet, it'd be very difficult. So I think what it is now I think it's too much money invested in just because of how badly the Iraq war went down and that, now what's going on with Syria and North Korea are more like military threats. The intervening in Venezuela, especially considering that Cuba and the Kremlin would be involved heavily in that,
that's true,
is not in the department's interest. I mean, it's one of the things too, also, like, as horrible as it is, I don't necessarily blame the State Department as much as they've intervened, because we've had now 2 decades of extremely anti-American sentiment going on through the, presidential halls of Venezuela. And it's not the fault of the poor people, because there is evidence that in the 80s, the 70s, and 60s, there was CIA interference towards the growth of the country, but foreign interventionism either way. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's very complicated. Like I said, it's all those trains hitting at once.
Sure.
I know for a fact Marco Rubio was trying to, or people were petitioning Marco Rubio to kind of do something, but I think there's so many things on the domestic and foreign front that helping Venezuela is like number 255 on the docket for the Trump administration. And it was the same for the Obama administration. So it's not a partisan thing. I think it's just a matter of just the priorities right now, it's unfortunate, but I think Venezuelans need to, it sucks. The only people that can help us now are ourselves.
Sure.
And I wish, I mean, honestly, like the first time, like, I don't know. Things are that bad. If Trump went in there with the Marines, I'd probably be like, yay. But, yeah. And I would never, I'm not that type of person at all, but it's just because kids are dying in hospitals. Like, you have to kind of compromise. But yeah,
there should be like a smaller organization, kind of like Greenpeace, but not Greenpeace, but something like that can, get together for shit like this that isn't directly linked to the government. It's just people that get together and want to go fucking help out,
Yeah, I mean, there have been private donation organizations that have been helping in the hospital, and especially for medical supplies and medicine. The risk there is that they're not confiscated or smuggled once come in and then put on the black market. So that's the thing, because the state of it is basically like as close as you can get to being a failed state outside of being Libya post-revolution. Because a complete failed state is the economy completely collapsing, everything. But it's pretty much holding on by, a nylon thread right now. But since it's so close to a failed state, imports and exports like that get confiscated and are like basically stolen. So that's the thing. There have been organizations, but it's one of the things, getting it to the people that need it is really hard. Yeah. So like, I think there have been more movements to get the Red Cross involved. But since technically it's not a failed state yet, it's kind of, because according to the government, this is just a insurrection. It's not like a crisis. So they haven't asked for foreign help. But yeah.
That sucks, dude. Well, hopefully, I mean, I'm not in any position right now to claim to bring a large audience awareness, but hopefully this reaches enough people and then awareness can start spreading of, hey, maybe we should throw a hand down there, Shit's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I try and do what I can privately. I don't like necessarily just, being the whole social media thing martyr, because like, it's almost like thoughts and prayers. People don't get fed with likes. They don't get medicine with thumbs up. They need it with money and capital. And like, I don't want to nail myself on a cross for that type of stuff, but it's good. At least a podcast like this, at least since it's this is better because it's a conversation and there's more detail into it than necessarily like when you just make a post and people are like, okay, that seems bad, but it's something like that. People can actually hear more of what's going on. So I prefer to talk about it in this manner. But thank you for at least letting me discuss that. That's a good thing.
For sure, man. It's crazy, dude, that the desensitized, or however you say it, that how people are feeling this day. Like you just said, like you see a post like that, most people just read about half of it. They won't even read all of it. They'll just read some of it and be like, oh man, that sucks. You know, put sad face emoji and then move on. Like, it's, people don't even realize that that's real life. It's not just a fucking, you know, a story on the internet. Like, it's real life.
Yeah. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, that type of thing, because it's kind of like, it's good in the sense that more people now know about things. Mm-hmm. But also, I think what I find specifically, like, you can think about general political climate, but it has to do, it's not even a liberal or conservative issue, it's just a general human nature thing, is that because we're now in the age where all knowledge is easily accessible, I think humans as a whole, and not even just Western civilization, like humanity as a whole is just trying to go like, I got to cover my ears for certain things because it's almost like too much input at once about knowing everything. And it's crazy because if you look at it historically, the past was way worse in terms of like, you know, injustice, war, death, famine, all the awful things that people consider. Oh, yeah. But now I think is now all the awful things in the world, you can't ignore it, which is good in a way because you have to grow up now. You can't just be a little farmer in the middle of nowhere and just pretend that these things don't happen, and you can be sheltered. You know, now you know about these people, now you know about these struggles, but at the same time, I think because it's so much overload and so much information, people become numb to it and they choose to kind of turn the key off on occasion because, you know, it is kind of the struggle for this generation, and I don't necessarily mean millennials, but for people alive during the information age, which is that we now know everything. Yeah. Or we can't pretend that we don't have access to information. So are we going to just take on that burden? Is because that's going to be the human burden now. Is not, you can't say, oh, I didn't know, because you did know. Yeah. Unless you willingly choose to not know. Right. So that's kind of the thing. So it's a weird time to be alive. I'll say that. It's a very strange time. Yeah. No, it's one of my favorite quotes from Fight Club. It's like, you met me at a very weird time in my life. I feel like, this is all a very weird time. I think in general for everyone, regardless of what you do for a profession or what your status economically is, I think, and it's not even the United States, I think as people, humans are going through a very big transitionary phase. You know, they call about the Anthropocene, you know, the age in which we finally like get to the higher level as a species, you know what I mean? And I think we're going through the full growing pains of that. Like, and it's crazy being born this because things change faster than ever before. Like, you know, I was talking to someone the other day about this, is that my grandfather was born in 1919. And he was born in a farm in El Salvador. Mm-hmm. And for the most, his teenage years, apart from like being a car and stuff like that, and his father's life were roughly the same. I mean, there were advancements, obviously, because, you know, the 1830s to 1919, you have like inventions like the airplane and cars. But in terms of progress, especially social progress, stuff like that, things happen slower. So like, a father and a son would have pretty similar life experiences. But then you see someone like, just for example, not to bring it up, but like our parents' generation to ours, how much has changed just technologically. Like, we're having this conversation at this, you know, speed of light, essentially.
A video conversation.
on a handheld computer. Right. And, you know, my father used to live on a fishing village on the coast of Venezuela in the 70s, and he used to say, like, yeah, you know, you would wait, you know, you had a radio, but you didn't have like air conditioning, things like that. And, you know, I mean, obviously in the first world they did, but even then, like rotary phones, sending everything through mail, and like now, especially the music industry, like I'm going to tie this into like being in a band. Yeah. How different it was to be in a rock band in the 70s to now. Like, you know, Jimmy Page was never like, I'm going to make YouTube videos for this pedal endorsement. Right. Yeah, it is crazy. The whole system of labels like has kind of gone out the window. Like, there are still labels and they still help, but that whole concept of, you know, back in the day, like, I have a band, I'm going to get signed and I'm just going to party off because I got money now. Like, that's not how that works. It's crazy because, like, I mean, I guess, like, you know, like in the like Milton Friedman-esque sense of the word, he was correct because the market changes things, and because the labels, which were the banks, because you couldn't shoot a video before, you couldn't press a record because it physically cost too much money, unless you had someone in your family that was willing to sponsor you, or you won the lottery, or you were just so independently wealthy in your early 20s that you could just throw money around. You needed that investment bank, because that's what a label was. A lot of people, I mean, even to this day, don't really know what a label was. It was a bank.
Yeah.
It's a bank. It's giving you a business loan at a really shitty interest rate, but that's what it was.
Yeah, a lot of bands end up broke.
Yeah, you end up in a lot of debt. But like, perfect example, like my band Ladder Map, that are like my projects here in Boston, that we just went on tour with Sarah Longfield and Drusuf Stalin. You know, Tony, our drummer, is an audio-visual designer, and like, we're just doing a product thing for Alesis and the Head Rush pedal, and Tony shoots everything in 4K video, which is better quality than music videos in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, these are like Michael Jackson style videos, like, you know, with detail, editing, everything. But now all these things that used to cost Hollywood budget levels of money, now if you got $3,000 in a laptop, you can compete with anyone. So it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. It's only going to get crazier. I mean, you're kind of in the nerdy sense like me, where I'm sure you've heard of the HoloLens from Microsoft.
Vaguely, but I have. Yeah.
So that to me is a crazy concept, and that's just what they're showing us. I'm pretty sure that they've got it, you know, far more advanced version of it already that they're working on. It's just we're able to deal with, okay, here's a HoloLens, it'll cost $400. If you want something crazier, it's you know, a couple $100,000 or whatever. We can get you some intense holographic, you know, AR kind of thing where I'm talking to you and you'll actually be a person walking around my table, you know what I mean, while I'm watching TV on the wall, because you just open up with your fingers in midair, and it'll create a screen on your wall, and you're watching TV on your wall while you're also walking around on my table and shit. Like, it's nuts, dude.
Yeah, I think what's gonna happen, like, so, you know, like, again, just making it as a point of like humanity, like how for the baby boomers it was adjusting now, or having kids in the information age. I think for our generation, what it's gonna be is like, when will that much immersion be too much for our senses? Because the little kids now are going to be so used to it, like the way that we grew up with, kind of with the internet, where, you know, we see a shit post or a troll, and we're like, oh, we see it from 50 yards away, but our parents might be like, are these people serious? I mean, like, you know, depending on how immersed they are. And it's not their fault, because, like, you know, shit posting and memeing and all this crazy shit, and that's just the surface level, has gotten so advanced, and like just in general immersion of that. So for us, we'll like, when AI becomes like a real thing, what I think is going to be like us being like, where's the line? And our kids are going to be like, there is no line.
Yeah, it's fine.
and but you know, and that kind of is always like the line that floats between, like, you know, all human civilization, where does progress start and unraveling begin? But I mean, we're still here.
Yeah, sure.
And we're still here, and we've survived a lot shittier things. So
sure.
Hopefully, yay to optimism.
Yeah. No, honestly, I'm already getting to that age, dude. I mean, I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 29.
29. So I'm turning 36 this year, and I feel that I'm already starting to feel it. Like, I'm like, I look online, I'm like doing my thing online, and I see a meme of like the cracking one open with the boys, and I'm just like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, this doesn't even make sense. What is this?
That's the point, man. It's not supposed to make sense. It's a shit post, but I'm kidding. No, I understand. The other thing that's relevant to that is that now the way that every stupid thing that every kid has ever done, like that people used to get away with. You know what I mean? Like in the 50s, kids were just as stupid. But there were no cameras recording all the stupid things they thought and said. Now, for this generation, the struggle really is that everything, you know, every stupid thing that everyone your age has ever said. But it's also kind of hard, too, for older people, because, like, your age is being reflected back at you in real time. Yeah. Where, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know how things, you see the wheel turning of time, like, much more than before. Because, exactly, like, a meme like that would be like, that's so fucking dumb. But at the same time, like, you can't escape that now. You know what I mean?
For sure, I know what it is. Like I've seen it a million times, and it's just I still don't get it. But all right, you guys are doing that.
No.
I've gotten to that point. Like I used to be very into I still do memes, but they're all like inside jokes for myself. Like I have this group of on Facebook where it's just a bunch of beer reps, and we just all like we'll shoot the shit and we'll give pointers every once in a while. But a lot of the times it's just memes of us making fun of each other. Like I saw one of a dog like pressed up against a glass, and I'm like, that's me every time I'm trying to find a fucking bar manager before the bar opens. Like that's what we do. Like it's so stupid. Let me tie in beer to all of this conversation we just had in a very funny way for you. So I had a really rough time selling Cigar City Maduro in Florida because of Venezuelans.
Oh yeah, dude! Like, oh shit.
Yeah, I would go to a bar and I'm like, hey, so we have this brown ale. It's called Maduro. They're like, what? No. I'm like, oh, okay. Like to me, I never really knew like full details of what was going on over there. Like I know shit was bad and I've seen the articles, but I didn't like. Now I get it. Now I understand why you don't want to sell a beer called Maduro.
It's not that bad, but it's kind of like, yeah, like you going to like Boca Raton and being like, we have a new stout called Hitler. It's pretty good. And they're just like, get the fuck out of my bar.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it was way worse, but it's more like, it's going to do that whole like, nope effect.
Immediate no. Yeah.
But actually, speaking of beer, I have been trying to explore the stout world more. I mean, I'm an IPA guy by, preference, but I've been finding my good friend Andrew Reynolds, Druce of Stalin, he worked for a while at a liquor store, and so he has incredible taste in beer. And I didn't like a lot of stouts for a while, but then he turned me on to some that were really, really good. I can't off the top of my head, but I'm trying to move into that direction more because I really like the flavor of a good stout now. Like,
are you more into like the roastier kind of more bitter stout, or you're more into the sweeter like experimental, what they're calling the pastry stouts, which is like vanilla and strawberries and fucking chocolate and cinnamon?
I definitely like it. I definitely like it more like when it tastes like a nice bitter coffee. Not bitter, like too bitter, but you know what I mean? Like that nice smoky, almost like kind of roasty taste, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Where it feels like almost like a hearty meal in a glass kind of thing. Because that's what it does. It kind of feels like that. It feels like a meal in a glass, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Old Rasputin is one that I would think of that's like the one that represents that kind of style most for me. Again, if you want like super strong and like just, it's a stout. It's not a fucking dessert. It's a stout. It's meant to be like intense. It's meant to warm you up when you're outside. Like, for some reason in the beer world, stouts are kind of shifting into this, like I said, pastry stout, where they're adding all these adjuncts to it, and it's basically just fucking syrup, dude. Like, I'm trying to let beer people know, these new beer guys that are all they're into pastry stouts and they're into mead. I'm like, guys, you don't like beer. It's okay. Go drink fucking daiquiris. Like, that's what you're into. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I've never been a flavored beer guy. I mean, the flavors I like in beer are from the natural process of making the beer. So like IPAs, I like, the nice hoppy flavor to it. Yeah. For lagers, for me, I just need to have like, I think American IPAs and stouts and even Hafas have gotten to a level where we've really reached like a really great craftsmanship level with it. Mm-hmm. I was just talking to someone the other day, like in the 90s and the 80s, like, you talk to someone in Europe, they used to just be like, dread coming here because the beer was so bad. But the craft beer movement has really made it into now Americans can like proudly say like, yeah, dude, you go into a nice craft beer bar, you're going to have some incredible beverages there with a lot of craftsmanship and artistry and like a lot of love put into that. But the only thing I want to see more of would be like really good quality American lagers. Yeah. Because I feel like a Pilsner, I know Pilsner is a simple beer, but like, really bring the Pilsner game again. Because I think like the big, the Budweisers of the world have kind of, monopolized that kind of area of it. But I would love to see like more craft Pilsners. I know not like you can only do so much, but you know, you go to Germany, the Pilsners there, like, you can bathe in that stuff. It's amazing.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's definitely where the movement is going, man. So with craft beer here, it became this, like, we wanted to do something different from Budweiser and all that shit, and do something crazy. And I feel like we've taken it to the full extreme. Like I said, point of pastry stouts, and like people are throwing bread and making banh mi fucking beer. Like, that's fine, but I think we've reached the point of like, all right, guys, that was cool. I can't support Budweiser because they're the fucking evil enemy that is taking down independent fucking brewers. So I can't support them, and I still want to have that shitty beer I had when I was in college. Like, I want something light, just beer. I want a clean fucking lager, and everybody's getting to that point. Like there's a bunch of new places here, including the brewery I work for right now, where we're starting to focus on lagers and releasing that, because that's definitely going to be the next thing. Like, that's going to be the next big move. Everybody's going to be like, all right, I'm tired of all that shit. Just give me beer, but I want it to be craft beer. You know, I can't give money to Bud. You know?
Oh, definitely, man. Like the thing is, like, I love great IPAs for the flavor, but like, especially like, there's nothing worse than like, I mean, like an IPA like chilling by the docks or the beach. It's just too heavy for that type of scenario. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because it's a flavor. It's also a flavor experience. I mean, like, you know, like when you have a nice IPA, you know, I can drink it fast, but you also want to enjoy the flavor, the aftertaste, you know, the whole experience of it. But if you're like on a boat in the middle of a lake, a strong IPA, I think, might make you feel worse than like, you know, like a nice lighter beer might do better for that type of scenario. But that's good to hear. I mean, I'm on board with that. If that's the direction it's going, I would love it to taste like an amazing, like, you know, really good lager here.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, it's funny too, man. The craft beer movement kind of is kind of in sync with itself. Like, if you're in, you don't even realize it, because you're like, oh, I want a lager. It's like, yeah, that's where we're going. Like, you're on this wave with us, and everyone that drinks craft beer, they're kind of on this wave together. Like, when IPAs were popular, IPAs fucking blew up everywhere, and then like people are like, I kind of want like a, you know, maybe a sour beer, and then all of a sudden sour beer blows up. Like, everybody's on that wavelength, so that's kind of cool, which is something that I appreciate. That's what got me kind of hooked into it. Just this culture and this like cool vibe, you know. Like, I started getting a little jaded when I moved out here. I got a little jaded because there's so many breweries and it's so competitive, and it gets kind of douchey, and I just I'm like, you know, this is why I left Miami, man. It's too douchey there. Like, I gotta get out, and it's crazy, man. Like, I don't have time or patience for any of that beer drama. Like, you guys do your thing. I only approve of the drama with Budweiser. Like, yes, fuck those guys. Only because those guys, like, people don't understand. There's a new wave of people saying, oh, you're just hating on Bud because it's a cool thing to do. It's like, no, we hate on Bud and Bud-owned breweries because they put money forward in the distribution channels to prevent us from selling beer. Like, they're at war against smaller breweries, and then they're coming out saying like, oh, we should be together, let's band together against wine and spirits. Okay, then why are you putting money into stopping us from growing?
It's like the Standard Oil thing from, you know, like the turn of the 20th century, but with beer.
Yeah.
It's a it's trying to control a full monopoly, you know, like that's what they're trying to do.
Dude, beer's the new gold. It's insane. Values, there's a whole black market value I don't know if you're aware of, that it's just like somebody will release, like Wakefield in Wynwood will release a stout, and it'll cost you $25 to go, but you have to stand in line and go through this whole issue just to get the bottle. You get one bottle, but you can then go online and turn around and sell it for $400.
Holy shit.
So
what? I was unaware of this truffle-esque mafia style black market.
Yeah, dude, there are websites. You go to there's a website called Beer Black Book that tells you the market value, the fucking market value of these beers. It's nuts. And that's
this has gone.
It's gone so far.
I feel like I've been red pilled for beer. I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Oh man, it's not, dude. People make a full living just in all they do. Their whole life is going to beer releases and then selling them online. That's all they do. They go to a beer release. They line up 4 a.m. The doors open at 11 a.m., but they'll be there at 4 with their fucking seat and their tent, and they'll tent out. And then they'll buy the full allotment. They'll bring there's mules, so they'll bring they'll bring mules, like, so they'll bring like their grandma or their mom and their sister, their cousin, whoever's 21 and over. Everybody's there with him, camping out, so that when the doors open, everybody gets a full allotment. So he goes home with like a couple cases, where most people will just go home with a bottle or two, you know.
Yeah.
And now he's selling a couple cases at $400 a pop, like. That's money, man. That's fucking, it's insane.
Right? I have no idea.
Yeah, man, it's wild.
Okay, I'm a musician, and I'm like, man, you know, you just got, I don't know. I always find people that can find money-making schemes like this, and I go like, man, what the fuck?
What am I doing? Yeah, dude, every time I hear about something like that, like when Bitcoin took off, I was like, fuck. I want to do that.
Dude, I knew a kid in college. My friend Jerry had a friend that, like, this is like 2009. He just bought some, like, as like almost a joke. Like, he bought it kind of like, you know, as an afterthought. So you know how there was like digital wallets, like it's a Bitcoin wallet?
Yeah.
So he had it, you know, he just had it and like didn't think anything of it for like 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And then like he checked and then he sold them off. He had like 50 Bitcoin or something like that. It was like a spike during that time. It was a spike. He made like a couple of grand.
Jesus Christ.
And it was just, he bought it literally, like he bought it when it was like nothing. So he bought it almost like as a, you know, an experiment to find out what it was. And then, you know, college just took over his life and he didn't think about it. And yeah, he then found out it was worth a couple of grand. And like, yeah, it's pretty nuts, man. Like, again, the internet, the age we live in.
Yeah, yeah, and it does it in every kind of industry too, man. Like I had a friend I'm still his friend. I don't know why I said I had a friend. He's not dead, but I have a friend who when Diablo 2 came out, or 3, sorry, Diablo 3 came out. I was all excited because I love the first two, and I'm there playing the game, and just he jumps in my game, and he's like, "Come with me, I'm gonna show you something." And like he's running through the dungeons and like getting these special like randomized loot that would drop, and he would then turn around and sell that loot on eBay. So he would sell you a sword in Diablo 3 for a couple $100, which would guarantee you to be like super statted out, you know? Like what?
Oh my god, that's so crazy. I mean, like I read a couple of like I forget the name of the book, but I forget the name of the author. The book's called A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Very, very like pertinent, you know, kind of cornerstone book. It's on its like 18th edition. What do you call it? And it talks a lot, a brief introduction on, you know, economics as a whole with history examples. You know, it gives like really good example of like perceived value. Basically, all value is perception, and how, you know, certain things like the Dutch tulip inflation fiasco that happened in the 17th century and stuff like that. But that can't help but like remind me is like when someone takes a stock, and just because of like the perceived value, people will evaluate it at like, you know, regardless of what it actually means. But like, you know, think about it. Like someone actually went like, I'm going to drop $200-300 on an imaginary sword. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's not even like a software that will help you make money in the real world. It's literally an imaginary little pixel thing that gives you better stats in the game. And I get it. Like, I mean, we all buy things that are fun, but it's just funny that like, that's like very much so like, how do you value something like that? Well, what's whatever people are willing to pay. And apparently your friend's really smart because he's making hundreds of dollars off of imaginary swords. So good for him.
Yeah, no, I know. It just blew my mind because I'm like, dude, I'm trying to enjoy the story. And he's like, no, you got to rush with me. We got to run to the front because like there's a monster that pops up at a certain time, and you know if you got to kill him within a certain amount of time, and then he'll drop this crazy loot, and he's just farming that shit all day. That's all he does. And they do it in World of Warcraft, gold farming and all that shit. It's fake money, but at least it's a currency. But you know, still, it just makes me realize like money is it's such bullshit. You know what I mean? Like it's not money shouldn't be a concern right now. Like that's my goal really. It's I want to get to the point where I don't have to fucking worry about money. Not because I want to be rich and have a boat. No, I just don't. I want to be able to turn the lights on and go online and not have to worry about like, oh shit, I need to put in a few extra hours today.
It's for fucking real. I mean, I'm so stoked because this tour I'm doing with Scale the Summit is going to be the first tour I'm substantially coming home in the black with. And, you know, it's on a bus.
Nice.
Tour manager, you know, my friend Derek from Laddermouth, our lead guitar player, volunteered, and he's going to be doing merch. And just at the end of every week, there's, you know, a payout. Because with the other bands I'm in, they were smaller. So like, especially when you're first starting out, when you're younger, you go on tour and you take a loss because that's just the way you got to do it. You got to hustle. You got to fall on the sword, especially if you want to make it in rock or prog or anything like that. Because really, unless you're lucky or you have a rich dad or rich auntie or something like that, you're going to have to do tours where you take it up the ass for a while, and then you're going to lose money. And then finally, you start floating up to the top of shit, you know what I mean? And then you finally can breathe. But that's what I'm stoked about. This new Scale record so far has been received really well. And so this is going to be the first tour where I'm going to be able to, like, just off that tour, pay all my bills for the month with it, like bring home money, like pay off cards and stuff like that, which is a nice feeling because music's probably one of the hardest things to make money off of.
Oh yeah.
In that sense. So, it's a great feeling. I hope everything goes according to plan. Chris is incredibly well organized, like super, super well organized guy. So I'm looking, that's also been kind of the great thing about Scale of Summit is that he's got his P's and Q's and he runs it like a business and like, everything's filed, everything. I get the files right on time. I get, the schedule as soon as I know it. I get the financial breakdowns as soon as I know it. And it makes the playing side of it much more enjoyable because, it's already hard enough. It takes a lifetime to be able to play this type of music. It takes your whole life to be good enough to play prog. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or play jazz or any of this stuff. So you already have done all this extra work before you even step up on stage. So when you have someone that's also good at like the finances, it's good at the organizational structure of it, that's good with scheduling, it's good with communication, it makes the experience so much better because all I have to worry about is doing my part, learning the songs, going up on stage, doing a good job at that. But I get to enjoy myself because I'm not having to worry about logistics. I don't have to worry about if someone's going to drop the ball because, luckily Chris has that like really well organized. And that's the other thing with the projects I'm involved in is that I've been grateful enough to be with people who aren't just great musicians, but also have level heads on there. So
that's awesome.
With Laddermath, even though we're still on that level, we it was great because we were so well organized. We did everything. Even though that was our first tour, as a total opener for Joseph and Sarah, we broke even.
Right.
Which normally the first time you go on tour, you lose tons of money. You know what I mean? But because we had our merch game on point, we had, our finances all calculated and tracked. We found ways to like fund part of our gas money through co-sponsorship deals, like just that type of initiative. For Laddermath to do its first tour and break even, that's for us. We take that as a very big victory because most bands, even organized bands, the first time on tour, they come home with a couple grand worth of debt or a couple $100. I've heard horror stories of even when it's good people, like sometimes they just have a bad run or something shit happens and they have 10 grand in debt.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Or
yeah.
So for that, I've been really grateful that the guys I've been involving with myself with are smart human beings, not just great musicians, which has made playing music, even though it's far from lucrative on that level, it's been a real joy and it's been nice to, been awesome. Like with Laddermath, even though it's the smallest band, my friend, who's our lead guitar player, he also plays with Joseph Stalin. I got him the gig in Joseph Stalin's musical endeavors as rhythm guitarist. And, he was playing at the SME at Tech Fest, which is happening right now. And, they played with Tech Fest and Joseph had been there 3 times. So Joseph has a solid fan base there and rightfully so, he's earned it. But it was kind of interesting because Derek was walking off stage and a couple of fans approached him. Now, this is in Brighton, England. We've never played England at all. And Laddermath is a big band, in the sense of international fame. And people recognized him from Laddermath. And it was so freaking cool because for a band our size to be like that on point, that people remembered him, and whether it's through me because I'm the guy in the biggest bands in the band or, just through our own work, it was great to hear that because, people know Scale of Summit, people know Felix Thornton, but Laddermath is the project that, needs the most, it's the smallest band that I'm in right now, but to know that that's making an impact and that, that means a lot to me, and I'm grateful for the people that check it out, but it also speaks a lot of, my co-bandmates and everyone for being so organized and being just on top of their stuff that, even at our level, we have some people overseas that recognize it. So that's cool.
Yeah, dude. I completely agree, and that would be the number one advice I'd give any band that's trying to go on tour or trying to start their shit. Like, get your shit together. Because even to sever, you know, I came back $2,000 in debt. I lost my car. Because I sold my Toyota that I had, which was like a, you know, regular 4-door Corolla, but it was my car. And then I sold that to buy a van, and the van blew up like third day in the fucking tour.
No.
Yeah. In fact, I just found the other day I have the license plate still because we fucking just left it there. We just left it on the side, took all our shit, threw it in the. We were on tour with another band, so we just threw all our shit in their shit and left the van there. And we just like drove back to Florida, picked up his dad's pickup truck, and we took that on tour so we can tow the fucking trailer full of shit. And it was a nightmare, dude. And that actually, it's so funny. So Scale the Summit's actually been a part of my career and life for a while, dude. And not in a direct like me being like, oh, I'm such a fan. It's more like that tour where I was in debt. We ended up playing with Scale the Summit in Texas by mistake.
Nice.
By mistake.
Oh, by mistake.
Yeah, because we had the guy who booked our tour was an asshole, and he didn't really put the work in that we paid him for. We drove.
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've been there.
We fucking drove all the way to Texas, and the venue was like not there. It was rubble, like it just didn't exist. So
what the fuck? Okay, I've never just gone to a pile of rubble. I've been to like we're double booked, but not. The building no longer exists.
Yeah, we drove up. We're like, what the fuck? This is not. So we drove around that town and looked for a show. Like we were just like, fuck, we got to play tonight, and we need to play for money, like to get to the next fucking show. So we ended up running into this bar, and they were having some festival, and Scale the Summit was playing, and it was so funny because they had this giant riser for some reason, drum riser. Like our drummer was like a good 10 feet in the air. It was so weird.
Motley Crue shit.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, whatever. And it's so crazy. The band's been around, you know, with me in this journey of life.
The peripherals, yeah. I definitely understand that. I mean, it was kind of weird. I remember before, like somehow the same thing too. Like my first NAMM. Apparently, I had met Chris in like 2009 at a NAMM show. Like, you know, I just forgot, you know. Because it was when me and Felix first went there. I think I got Felix a pass, and we were just hanging out. And I guess I met Chris Letchford, and then we played South by Southwest, me and Felix, in 2014, and they were the headliners. And so, like, it's kind of a weird thing. He's always kind of been on the peripherals of my career as well. And then it was just I got the sub-in gig, and then just lo and behold, things happen. It's kind of funny you mentioned South Florida a lot because I grew up in Deerfield Beach. So,
nice.
You know, it was, you know, I just remember now, thankfully, the music scene's coming back to that area. But for a while, like in like, not that it had any correlation whatsoever, but like during the Bush years and the beginnings of the Obama years, I'm just saying like for time reference, like it died. And then all of a sudden people started bringing venues back, and it's finally starting to kick off again. Because now I know of friends of mine who play in metal bands down in South Florida, but for the longest time after Pompano Interstate Park and that whole like punk scene like died out in the hardcore scene, it just died for like 6-7 years. Mm-hmm. And then now finally people are bringing it back, and I know some musicians who live down there that are like making it happen. And you know, it's kind of nice to see that, because for the longest time I was like, man, this place needs more venues, it needs more kids in the scene. And it's not that the kids weren't hungry for it, they were. It's just people didn't want to, you know, they couldn't do venues or whatever, or it was like timing and stuff like that. So I remember like, you know, the lost generation of like kids there. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I was good friends with this kid named Mark Ellis. Now, Mark Ellis now is the drummer for Yngwie Malmsteen.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic fucking drummer. Like just absolutely out of this world. And probably one of my favorite drummers to play with. One, because we're best friends. Like whenever we hit it off again, we see each other, we're just best friends. But he's one of those people, when you jam with the drummer and it's magical, and you guys read each other's minds, essentially. Like I could play anything and he could kind of feel my vibe. It's just chemistry, you know what I mean? Like it's like the right shoe fits with people. You don't have to force anything.
Sure.
And it was always, when I jam with him, it was always like, and I think that's the best type of creativity. We weren't trying to impress each other anymore. So we could take risks with anything. And because we
took risks, it actually ended up that we could pull off more crazy stuff. But I digress. Is that he had this band called, forget the band's name, but like it was right at the cusp when the scene was dying, and he was really good. And I remember like I would go to his house, and he'd have this beautiful Mapex set, and he was an incredible drummer, not just like good, like you're good for the bedroom, like like that he practices a lot, but he doesn't play the band. He's good in everything, but he's always like, man, like there's no metal guys here really, or like all this stuff. And now there's actually a community of people that like are doing it. Like perfect example, a really good friend of mine from Berkeley, his name's Ivan Chopic. He runs a website called guitarmessenger.com. He also plays in a band, Painted in Exile. Excellent tech death prog band. Fantastic guitar player, really funny guy. One of my friends does at 18. And I met him at Berkeley. And then we started talking. I go like, man, like, where'd you grow up? And he goes like, oh, Coral Springs. And I go like, dude, we could have been a little band. And I had the greatest drummer. Like literally, Mark lived in Delray. I lived in Deerfield. And Ivan lived in Coral Springs. I go like, dude, we could have had a metal band in high school. We had known this. But it's because that scene was so like dry at the time that you couldn't just go to a show. Like, like that's how scenes happen. Like you meet Mastodon. A perfect example. Like the Atlanta scene, you go, oh, do you know a drummer? Do you know a guitar player? And people jam with each other. And then through that incestuous nature of scenes, bands get formed. But because there was something then, like, all these amazing players were just stuck not doing much. But now that's changing finally. And it's good to see that. Like the kids in South Florida are having bands and doing that. Like metal bands, and there's venues and stuff like that, which is really refreshing to see.
Yeah, man. I there's a lot of really good bands from Broward that friends of mine that we played with a lot, and like Falsetta is one of those groups that those guys should be rock stars at this point. Like they should be on the radio and touring with Incubus and that whole thing. Like they deserve that. Like their music is there, the fucking talent is there, their performance is there. Like those guys should be a big deal, and they're just fucking stuck in Broward. But like, guys, get out and go tour. But Ether as well. Like those guys. I mean, Pete's been doing shit for a while. He was in Remembering Never and a couple other bands. So I think those guys are on the cusp of blowing up in that scene, or at least once they hit the road, I think that's gonna go well for them. And so yeah, I mean, it's cool to see, man. And for us, we were a Miami band, and there really wasn't much in Miami. I mean, outside of like, it was always, shows were always DeSever and Silent Mara, and fucking maybe like one or two other, like Revolution would jump on or some other bands like that. But there's no venues. We were down to Churchill's. I think that was all they had down there. So it's ridiculous, man. But it's good to see that it is kind of sprouting some really talented people, and hopefully
slowly but surely the winds are changing, which is nice to see. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I think one of the things that hurts it down there is everything's so spread out. You know what I mean? Because like when you're in a city, like as big as New York is, if you live in Brooklyn, you can take the train to Manhattan. It's right there.
Yeah.
Florida, like let's say, we got a drummer in Boca.
Yeah.
And we all live in Miami. It's going to be 2.5 hours every day for him to run. And we get used to it and are desensitized to living down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's like a long, like if your girlfriend lives in West Palm and you live in Miami, it's a long distance relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I spent many years driving 2 hours to band practice, man. The band was based out of Homestead, so it was like right by the Keys.
Oh, that's right. That's down there as fuck, yeah.
Yeah, and I grew up in the Hialeah area, so I was living in Hialeah at the time and just driving from Hialeah to Homestead for band practice. I mean, that's at like 4:30, because they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do band practice at 5 or 6. I'm like, cool, I'll leave my house at 4:30. I'll get there in 2.5 hours. I'll see you later.
Yeah, especially rush hour through Miami. No bueno, man.
No, fuck that. We're reaching the hour mark, so I wanted to touch on a couple questions I had. Like, I feel that the type of music you guys are doing, and certain musicians like Tozen and Pliny and all those dudes, it's kind of tapping into some like very existential things for me. Like, and I know it's in an obvious way for certain bands because they show it in their artwork or whatever, their videos. And what is your mentality when it comes to that kind of vibe that you get of this, like, just, it almost sounds like alien language almost. Like when I hear some of the Animals as Leaders songs, like the tapping notes, it sounds like Morse code. Like you guys are a little more musical than that, like in more of a jazzier way, but it still has that same vibe. You're like tapping into some other frequency, you know. I want to know your thoughts on that.
I think it's kind of wonderful. What happened was that, you know, I believe that this like wave of instrumental prog rock was just a bunch of people, like especially young people now, like that are in their, you know, people under 40 to 22. Like I include even the Sean kids in that generation for that.
Mm-hmm.
That what it was is that they had access to all this information and all these genres of music all hitting them at once. And it just kind of led to this really high level of musical virtuosity mixed with so much melodicism, which was really kind of awesome. I'm all about this new wave of progressive instrumental rock because it's just kind of wonderful. Like, you know, and it's really taken over. Like I remember Chris was telling me that when he first started Scale the Summit, you know, labels were like, "Oh, you're instrumental, forget it."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, we got this resurgence of really good, tasteful guitar playing coming back. Because, like, even though scale, like things like Animals and Leaders, very technical, like everything has purpose in an Animal song. Same with Scale the Summit. Like all the notes kind of matter, and with Pliny, definitely, he's very, very melodic. And all these guys, David Maxim, you know, Nick Johnson. You know, Dispersed, Jacob Sateki, you know, all this kind of wave of instrumental rock. But yeah, I understand what you're talking about because it kind of is that like different frequency. And I think what it is also is that technology matched up with us because before, you know, to get all these different tones and everything, again, unless you're Michael Einziger of Incubus, where you have the money to invest in these huge pedal boards, or, you know, the Edge, it was too cost prohibitive. You know, that's why like the 80s bands were just the JCM 800 and the Gibson, you did that. But thanks to things like Fractal, you know, the Helix modeling amp, Kempers and all this stuff, all this modeling technology that sounds great. You have all these people achieve all these oceans of sounds, and the creativity and the limits are pretty much endless. And I love to see how people push it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's been wonderful to see it, and I'm really happy that I'm involved in this scene because also the level of musicians are all great.
Yeah.
You know, and all the bands, even something like Loudermouth, it's more straightforward. No one, I haven't toured with a band where anyone is a mediocre musician in forever. Like, I haven't done it with Felix. We always get hooked up with people who are amazing. Not just like amazing in the sense that they're technically gifted, they're also like really good musicians and they understand melody. But it's been kind of a joy because like all this music and all the level of musicians, everything are so open-minded, different styles. So, you know, like I think it's just everything, like the internet meeting a bunch of really gifted kids and all of them like kind of really getting there. And it's just been awesome for me to be able to play with as many musicians as I have. And I hope that, like, you know, it's been good. I've been guesting on more people's records. There's a big record that hopefully will come out next year with a guitar player who I cannot name yet, but a big level guitar player that I'm really looking forward to that being a thing.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, to go back to your question, yes, it does really tap into that kind of weird level for me, but I love it.
Are you into that? Do you look into that kind of stuff too? Like the fact that there are frequencies and that we live in one, and there are multiple ones that exist around us that they're just potential universes in a frequency. You know what I mean? We're just tapping into it using sound or whatever. But that's something that's always been a big topic for me.
Absolutely. I mean, tones and everything like that tap into the frequencies, and everything tap into a very different part of the psyche and your perception of reality. Like, I mean, and I definitely believe that because especially when I'm playing a set and it's going amazingly well and I'm just immersed in the sound, especially when the sound's good, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
I'm very much in a different headspace, and I feel like I'm floating. It's really kind of an ecstasy that can only be described as like pure, like happiness. It's like love. I mean, like when you feel like pure love, I know it's a funny example, but you know how like that your dog loves you on a pure level.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like that. It's funny to make that comparison, but it's actually like a really unadulterated kind of joy. And I've been very happy with all three of my bands that I've had those moments live where like I feel like I'm floating, and it's very much so. It's I don't think it's a religious thing or anything. I think that the human consciousness taps into something with music that it really is so cathartic. It's so incredibly cathartic. Without it, I think, especially people who are musicians, it's part of our well-being. Without it, we collapse.
Sure. Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many. You can definitely trigger different emotions via music too. Like there's certain chords that you can hit that'll make me like angry. I'll hear it and I'm just like, I want to punch something. Yeah. And it's like for no reason.
Progression for me, like you ever have this? I'm sure you have. When someone does a chord progression and they just hit the right chord to resolve something, and you just feel yourself kind of melt inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they resolve something like on a flat 9 major 7 or something like that. Something really unexpected. You're like, oh, you hit that right note. And you get that like, kind of shiver up your spine, or like that for me is that's what I always try and do is like, if something gives me a shiver up my spine, I personally try and reach that as much as I can. I mean, I'm a bass player, so my job with that is to be that huge wall, that kind of foundational support system for everything. But I play guitar as well, but I love playing bass in a band, because that feeling, especially when you hit the right notes and you're this giant, it's like a wave. You're like this giant wave in an ocean that comes in and sweeps the boat around. You know what I mean? And it's wonderful. I love that feeling, man. Like, especially when I'm on a big stage and all of a sudden, I can't describe the feeling to people who don't play bass or haven't shared the stage or known what it's like. But when you're playing and you hear your amp and all of a sudden the sound guy plugs it into the mains and you just feel yourself reverberating the fucking room. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like Thor. Especially with because I use these dark glass microtube 900 heads that sound incredible with a little bit of overdrive. And I just sound like an angry dragon, and I fucking love it, man.
Hell yeah, dude. I love that feeling. I mean, I've had it only a few times. I play bass too, but nowhere near as technical as you. I very simple, basic, like power violence bass, Power violence. Yeah. And but yeah, when I played we played a show and I used Dissever Anthony's gear, it felt so awesome because he had an 810 and I was standing right in front of it, and it was just as I'm playing, dude, I'm just shaking with it. I'm like, yeah. So it's crazy, dude. Just the vibe you get, and even the vibe you get from jamming with someone. Like I love jazz, and I used to study jazz in school, and the vibe you get when you're improvising with someone on a jazz song, or even if you want to go towards like Spain, like flamenco and stuff like that. Those dudes are all pretty much improvising most of that shit. There's like a bottom layer of like, okay, this is going to be this type of song, like with this kind of rhythm, but then most of the shit you're doing, you're just kind of vibing. And when it works out, like when you do a thing and it ends and it resolves, and then the bass player kicks in with something, or the
magic.
drum.
It's fucking magic, dude. Yeah. I play currently in a gypsy jazz trio. We sometimes have a quartet and we'll add a vocalist, but it's violin, gypsy, like nylon string, jazz guitar, and me on electric upright bass. And yeah, man, like sometimes we'll get those moments like where we really click. And what it usually is that we'll like, what I like to do, because like when I play walking bass, I like to stay down here. Some guys like to get flashy and get up there, and like for jazz, I like to just keep the chord changes going. But what I like to do is that with the high register, not that I'm not about doing the high register stuff, is that especially when you find a soloist will do something up high and then you match them and you'll like praise each other. It's almost like dolphins, like in between the waves. That stuff's just, man. I mean, like, or like you, like they do a melodic passage and you figure it out. So you add that to the bass line and then resolve it really quick back into a foundational thing. Oh yeah, that stuff's like, that stuff's nice. This stuff's really spicy.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Well, cool, dude. One last thing. Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
bro. Stoked?
I am. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm kind of interested to see where HBO is going to take it in terms of embellishment.
Because they're done with the books, right?
Well, the books aren't done yet.
Well, but I'm saying like the show's ahead of the books now, is what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I got to see where that's going. But I mean, I love the TV series. I think the casting's excellent. All the actors are amazing. The sets, the cinematography,
costumes,
yeah, everything in general is it's a great series. In general, it's just a good story arc, and like they've really done a good job of developing and even going into nuances with smaller characters. And really, because the casting's so good, you care more about There's the character development's always excellent. You know what I mean? Because the acting is so good that no one makes a character uninteresting. You always kind of want to know what's happening. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. My life really the next month is going to be touring and stuff like that. So television's going to be kind of out of my mind, but in general, like yeah, if I have some time off, it's going to be. Well,
if you get HBO Go on your phone, man, just fucking stream it while you're on a drive or something.
Amen to that, dude. Good call.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing now. I just upgraded my plan to have unlimited data because fuck it, I spend so much time on the road with just beer repping or with anything.
Oh yeah, dude. No, like having limited data. I've been on tour with guys with limited data, and it's not that I'm like, I agree. Like, I bring books on tour, everything, the whole 9 yards. But like, oh, dude, like they get so bored sometimes because like, you're not going to read a book in like. If you have like a nice venue with a green room, you'll go back there and read a book. But sometimes you just want to like be on your phone or listen to music by yourself or like just zone out or talk to people. And they're like, damn it, I ran out of data. I'm stuck. I don't have the internet. Like, it's stuck. I'm touring. And like, normally that'd be a bad thing. It's like, yeah, go and talk with people. But like, when you're on a 13-hour drive, which we had on this tour, yeah, dude, you kind of want to be on your phone sometimes because if not, you're going to go fucking insane.
Hell yeah. Any other shows you're stoked on? I mean, I know you have a Game of Thrones tattoo. That's why I asked you about it. So.
Oh, yeah. Television. The one series me and my girlfriend have been really into is a show on Sci-Fi. We've watched it for years now called Face Off, which is movie makeup.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it's actually a really good show. It's a reality-based competition, but it's not, and no drama. Like, they're not like, oh, Stacey said this, what a bitch. Like, it's none of that. It's all about the artistry. They have, like, guest judges that were, like, Oscar-winning makeup artists or directors. The challenges are always interesting. The level of people that they get for the show is really kind of awesome. The judges are very well-versed in what they do. So it's really kind of like, especially if you're an artist of any kind, whether it's a musician or everything, even if you're not, it's very enjoyable because it's the challenges are intense. The level of talent and creativity it is, and like usually the people that go on there are pretty fucking cool. So it's on Sci-Fi. It's called Face Off. It's not as well known as the other shows, obviously, but that's the only like really like two shows that I'm really loyal to on television because like to be honest, it's not because I'm trying to be hip. I just don't watch as much TV now, mostly because like
you're busy, dude.
I hate TV ads.
Oh yeah.
Like ads drive me insane. Like I just feel like ads rot your brain. Like I don't know. Whenever I watch commercials, I feel like, all my like biology classes in high school just slowly drifting away with useless information.
But did you know you can save 10% with Geico? I mean,
oh my god. That's gonna be the last thing I hear before I put a bullet in my brain. Just be like, just be like, did you know you can save 15% or more? Okay.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like stuff like that, but that's the only thing. But I do put up with it because that specific show is quite excellent. So yeah. Facebook.
Yeah, my girl and I watched a few episodes. She had an interest in doing face like makeup. There's a few pictures I have on my Facebook of like zombie makeup she did on me and stuff like that. But she got into the career she really wanted, which is working for video games. So
awesome.
That kind of stirred her away from that. But I feel that she'll still do it as like a hobby. But yeah, we've watched a few episodes of that show. That show's awesome. Plug time. You work for Jay Farrow Basses?
Yes. So, my signature bass is out now. You can get it now at www.jfarrowbass.com. I'm really happy with it. It basically sounds like if a Lakeland 5501, a really nice 70s Music Man Stingray,
ooh,
and like
Nice.
a jazz bass and like a Sire jazz bass all like had sex, and that was the baby. It's great because the slapstone still is sweet and sings, but because of that big old humbucker, it's really punchy. It's affordable. It's still roadworthy. Like it, I took it on tour. The neck didn't move at all. The hardware is incredibly sturdy. The electronics are quiet as a mouse. I've owned high-end basses where once I put the treble pot up, you start getting that sizzle, all that crap because of bad shielding. We take care of that. It's roadworthy as shit. Like, you can put it in the back of a hot trailer. You can come out. I've had it where it's still in tune.
Nice.
I had them set that one up in A flat. The neck didn't dive or anything. The intonation was still good all throughout the neck, and that's not even with the standard tuning. And it's awesome, and it's $999, so it's really affordable.
Yeah.
Like you can take that on the road, and I love it. Actually, I'm getting it set up right now by my friend Dave to be back in D standard, because obviously anytime you switch tunings, you should get it professionally set up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in love with it, man, and it sounds so punchy, especially with the dark glass stuff. Like, I remember I hadn't tried it out yet, and it got to me at Reggie's in Chicago, and the second I plugged it in and it went through the house, I was like, oh my God. And I remember my friend Dave Dunsire, who's a guitar player in Define Constant, was in the audience, and he goes like, dude, and Lee from Joseph Stalin's band was in the audience. They go like, dude, that sounds fucking huge. And it was punchy and ridiculous. And so I'm very happy with it. So yeah, jfarrowbass.com, the Kilian Duarte signature Escalon 5-string. Yay!
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Scale the Summit album is out now, right?
Yes, indeed. In a World of Fear, you can get that at Scale the Summit store. So just type in Scale the Summit store, and it'll take you to the band store. So yeah. And
you guys got a bunch of packages, different deals like colored vinyls, and I think I saw like a hard drive, I believe.
Oh, we have everything, man. We even have like great deals where like for $25 you get the album plus a tab book plus a digital copy as well. We have ones with posters. We have multiple bundles. Like, it's really, we got everything covered. So it's pretty great.
That's awesome. And you did the writing for the bass on that album?
Half and half. So what it was, and some people were like giving me a little bit of grief. So what happened is that because of time constraints, because of just how it had to happen, Chris had written some of the bass lines for it.
Okay.
So for like half of it, and then the other half, like Cosmic Crown, I wrote a lot of it. Some of the parts were already pre-written. So it wasn't like the old scale records. The next one, I can write whatever I want. It wasn't even that Chris was trying to control everything. Is that he had already written all this music, and then I joined the band.
Right.
So unless he wanted to scrap everything and do it from the beginning, which is so much time and labor, because he already had these songs written out.
Sure.
And then when the personnel shift happened, I had to kind of go off certain things. So he had the drums and all this written. But yeah, like a lot of the stuff in Royal Orphan, Cosmic Crown, some of that stuff where, there was my baseline writing, Astral Kids, there's parts of mine, and the next record, what we're going to do is differently because we're going to be writing it. I'm going to have more input into it, even though it's Chris's band.
Sure.
We're going to go, and I'm going to go to Colorado and actually record bass with him.
Nice.
And there'll be more active bass lines. But even on this record, I mean, I just have a darker mix, but Neon Tunes, there's like a crazy, insane tapping run. Royal Orphan's all flat. There's a bass solo in that and all that stuff. But yeah, it's half and half. So when some of the songs seem like I'm playing just more like pocket and roots and like kind of like with the kick drum, a lot of times that's my style too. I like to be laid back. I don't necessarily like this was going to be a guitar or like festival because of all the guests. But that being said, some of the parts were already pre-written. Like the Warden, for example, like John Brown from Monuments had the main riffs written out already.
Okay.
So, and because John writes amazing stuff, I'm not going to go and change something for the sake of changing it just to put my stamp on it if it already works, and especially because I was paid as a session musician.
Right.
Yeah, you want to do that. But yeah, there's some stuff of mine on there, but the next record is going to be literally like me at his house, us writing lines together with like that. So it's going to be cool. But I'm so happy with everything.
And you guys are going on tour with Marty Friedman, which is cool as fuck.
Hell yeah, man. And the Fine Constant. So me and Sarah Longfield, now it's going to be our third tour together.
Nice.
So it's funny. Yeah, no, now me and Sarah, like, I told Sarah and Steve that, like, we might as well get, like, an apartment together. Because, like, now it's going to be our studio tour together. But it's been cool. She's over there with all my other friends, which I'm, like, the only one of the group of friends that isn't over there just because, like, I had to prep for this tour. but they're over at Tech Fest, and I miss them all. And Drew and Sarah and Steve and Lee and all those guys that we just went on the Shot and Cringy tour with. So I miss them all. They're my friends, and I hope they're doing well. That seems like they had a great time at Tech Fest, and they're still actually Sarah's playing today, and then Sarah and Steve are playing today, and then Joseph played 2 days ago. So they've been just having fun.
Nice.
But yeah, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, so check out the tour dates online. Just Google Scale the Summit tour dates. I'm sure you'll get Google's list of dates. I'm stoked. I'm going to try and make it out to the, there's 3 dates here, but the LA one is always a nightmare. I hate going to LA for shows. So, yeah. But like, I think you guys are doing one in Pomona, if I'm not mistaken, or Pasadena, one of those.
And I think one in San Diego and Anaheim, I believe.
Anaheim.
Are the two other. So Anaheim's way more doable for you LA guys. So like, because that's just Orange County, which it's an hour drive, but whatever. Yeah.
It's actually not that bad. I'm in Long Beach, so it's like a 30-minute drive for me, and it's.
Oh, you're half an hour away. Yeah, LBC is not far away at all.
Yeah, and it's much more comfortable for me going there, and there's breweries in that area which make my life awesome. There's some really, really good breweries there. So if you actually make it to Anaheim, you should, because you're doing LA the day before. So if you want to meet up early before Anaheim and check out some of these breweries, I could take you to like Bottle Logic and
Dude,
Noble.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, like one of the nice things about this tour, because it is on a bus, we drive overnight to the next venue.
Yeah.
So you get to enjoy more of the city where, like, obviously you and me have both done van touring where sometimes you show up an hour before load in and you go like, how is Philly? He goes like, I don't know. I know how the venue was and the block corresponding to there because I had to eat before the set. But then we left immediately afterwards. Like, you know how that's like. So with this one, it's going to be nice because sometimes we'll show up at 9 a.m. or even earlier and sleep at the venue and wake up and literally like, because Marty's going to do a sound check first, so you can grab lunch around the city and then kill time before your set after loading. So
Sure.
If there's time, man, which I'm pretty sure there will be, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, brother. So yeah, social medias, Kilian Duarte, Instagram, is that just one word?
Yeah, Kilian Duarte Bass. So my handle for my YouTube and that is just Kilian Duarte with 1 L and then Bass, BASS. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, man. Hopefully I'll see you soon. The tour here is in like a month or so, I think.
Yep, in 3 weeks now. So we're starting August 2nd in Philadelphia. And then, then the next day is Boston. So it's kind of funny. I leave home, go for rehearsal in Philly, and then come back and sleep one night in my bed. And then, but it's kind of nice, whatever. I mean, like, so it's pretty chill. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Chris has got a brand new light show. We're playing some migration tunes for the old school fans. We're playing new stuff too, so people can hear the new record live.
Nice.
There's stuff for old fans and new fans. And on this tour, the drummer because Charlie just had a family obligation, he couldn't make this tour. So we got Victor from the Felix Martin Band subbing in. But that's kind of awesome because me and Victor have already toured twice together. So we've already gelled a lot. I mean, he's an excellent drummer. He just is a wonderful human being. So, we're going to have a rhythm section that's worked together a lot. And, just in general, like Chris has had plenty of time to plan this. So we're ready to knock it out and really go 110%. So I'm really excited.
Hell yeah, dude. Cool. Well, thanks again. And guys, check out Scale the Summit. Yeah.
And have a wonderful day, man. Take care.
You too, brother. Cheers. Bye.